risk rather than reward. Sometimes you can go down a big rabbit hole. Welcome to Real Talk. I'm JJ Kinahan. Good afternoon. Welcome to Real Talk. I'm JJ Kinahan, and I'm really excited about today's Real Talk show. Someone who's had a tremendous impact on the company I work for, TD Ameritrade, but more importantly, a tremendous impact on so many people's lives throughout the year. This is someone who started as a football coach, got into finance, incredibly successful in finance, goes back to being a football coach, and incredibly successful once again. Let me welcome to the set, Joe Moglia.
JJ, I'm proud to be here. Thanks for having me.
Joe, it's great to have you, and I want to start, if you don't mind, with a little bit of what I did on my intro. You were a football coach, so what drew you to finance, and then, just as importantly, what drew you back?
I think maybe to answer that, it's probably good to just kind of share a bit of my story.
Please.
So, my parents are both immigrants. My father was born in Italy, came here when he was 11. My dad never finished 8th grade, sold bananas and apples in the Bronx his whole life. I worked for him from the time I was 10. My mom came here actually later on and married my father. She was born in Ireland. She never finished high school. I was the oldest of 5. 7 of us lived in the Dyckman section, uptown in New York. It was a gang area. My goal was to play football and baseball in college, but then my girlfriend got pregnant. So sports were out, and I needed to figure out how I was going to go to college. And my father's advice actually was don't go to college. And his thought was, let's work full-time in the fruit store. But I thought if I did that, I would never wind up doing anything else other than being
never leave the fruit store.
And I told Dad that's what I was thinking. He said, you're making a big mistake. Now, I wound up going to Fordham University in Bronx. It's my freshman year. I am supporting my wife, my daughter, paying 100% of all my education. And my father's telling me, you're making a big mistake to go to college. I'm driving a New York City taxi cab, a truck for the post office here, working at my father's fruit store. You probably won't find this a shock, but it wasn't the most fun a freshman ever had in the history of college freshmen.
It was not Animal House.
No, it was not Animal House. And where I'd gone to school, Fordham Prep in the Bronx, had offered me a coaching job. So my sophomore, junior, and senior year in college, I majored in economics, thought I wanted to go to Wall Street, coached high school ball during the season, worked at my father's store the rest of the time. But by the time I became a senior, I really loved the coaching. And I decided that if I could get a head high school job, I'd pursue a career in coaching. If not, I was going to try to go to Wall Street. Mm-hmm. So at 22, I became the youngest head football coach in history of the state of Delaware. And my goal ultimately was to be the head coach at a major school. I'm proud of the way my career went. January 1984, the University of Miami upsets Nebraska for the national championship. And make a long story short, they have guys getting head jobs all over the place, going to the NFL. They offered me a job where I'm going to go down and succeed Tom Olivadotti, the defensive coordinator, Howard Schnellenberg is the head coach. So I'm going to go from defensive coordinator in the Ivy League to defensive coordinator at the national championship program, which was the king of college football in the 80s. I could not have asked for a better job than that. But for people that don't know, football coach, you work 5 months. You don't get a day off. It's 7 days a week. It's 80 hours a week. Your entire career is dependent upon what you do on Saturday. And especially back then, we didn't make much money. Now, I'm going to live in Coral Gables, Miami, and my children are going to live in New Hampshire. Mm-hmm. So toughest career decision, JJ, I've ever made in my life was turning down that job because it said I had to get out of football. But I didn't think I could do my job as a coach if I couldn't live up to my responsibilities as a father. So what else did I have interest in? And I had interest in Wall Street. So I just hustled around, and Merrill Lynch gave me an opportunity and put me in their MBA, institutional MBA training program. There were 26 of us, 25 MBAs, and 1 football coach. And everybody said, this football guy is never going to make it here. I mean, I couldn't spell the word stock, but that's not the way it worked out. And a few years later, all those MBAs were working for me. Mm-hmm. I'm very proud of my career at Merrill Lynch, very proud of what we accomplished. You had the dot-com bubble bursting around March 2000. Online brokerage firms were in trouble. Ameritrade offered me the opportunity to take responsibility for that. I moved from New York City to Omaha, Nebraska to take the Ameritrade job. It was difficult back then. I mean, we were struggling, and there was a decent chance we'd go out of business. But I couldn't be proud of what we wound up accomplishing at Ameritrade. I wound up stepping down in 2008. The board asked me if I'd be chairman. I'm still proud to be chairman of the board. And we had gotten it right. So we had 6 record years in a row. We had a 500% return to shareholders. That was the financial crisis.
Right.
We didn't make the mistakes everybody else made. So frankly, I had never been in more demand in my life. There were all sorts of things that I could have done. But then I get a call from a group of alumni associated with Yale telling me at the end of the 2008 season there was a chance the football job would be open. Would I be interested? And I remember saying, guys, I haven't coached for 20 years. I said, yeah, we know that, but we've taken a look at the skill sets a head college coach is supposed to have. We think you actually have competitive advantages. There's only one issue. I said, what's that? In 180 years of college football, this has never, ever happened. So it's going to take a unique president of a university to actually assess risk reward and make that decision. But think about it. I did. I decided to go back to football. So that's when I decided to do that. I spent 2 years at Nebraska, then 1 year in the United Football League, and then in 2012 I wound up at Coastal Carolina. Now, that was a long story, but that's a lot of my life. That covers my growing up as well as the 2 careers. A real leader is somebody that stands on their own 2 feet, takes responsibility for themselves, treats others with dignity and respect, and they're going to live with the consequence of your actions.
So here's the thing. I'm actually closer to my retirement days than I am my college days. I just want to know, am I going to be okay?
I know people who specialize in am I going to be okay?
I like that.
You may need glasses, though.
Schedule a complimentary goal planning session with TD Ameritrade.
24/7 access to diverse global markets. Right here. That's why I added stock index futures to my trading strategy. Now when I see ups and downs coming, I'm ready. Well played.
Feel that? That's the beat of global markets, the rhythm of the world. But to us, it's the pace of tomorrow. With ingenuity, technologies, and markets expertise, we create the possible. And when you do that, you don't chase the pace of tomorrow. You set it. NASDAQ. Rewrite tomorrow.
It's high time to power up your portfolio, explore ways to reduce risk, and take control of your financial future. Join me, Scott Connor, a 30-year veteran trader, as I dissect trading tools and show new trader Jenny Horn how to construct a long-term investing plan.
I'm kind of starting from scratch. This is awesome. I've never used trendlines before. I do like the growth stocks. They're like hipper and they're fun and they apply to a lot of millennial traders like myself.
Only on the TD Ameritrade Network.
So I have this recurring dream. I'm 85 years old in a job where I have to wear a giant hot dog suit.
What? Where's that coming from?
I don't know. I started my 401k early. I diversified. I'm not a big spender.
That sounds like you're doing a lot.
But I still feel like I'm not going to have enough for retirement. Like there's something else I should be doing.
With the right conversation, you might find you're doing okay.
So no hot dog suit.
Unless you want to.
No.
Schedule a complimentary goal planning session today with TD Ameritrade.
Well, one thing that really occurs to me is we talk about where you're at now, but this is something that started when you were a young man. All the multiple things, you know, there's not enough room on your head for all the hats you've worn your whole life. Time management. I think it's something that everybody on, watching this can identify with. How do you manage to do all these? There's only 24 hours in the day. We all have the same ones. You're using yours pretty efficiently.
Well, the reality is you have to prioritize. So, my first job is the head football coach at Coastal Carolina. And I am incredibly proud and honored to be the chairman of the board of TD Ameritrade. And when we've got something that I've got to be able to address, I could do that. But I'm blessed in the sense that I have tremendous confidence in our CEO, Tim Hockey, and I've got tremendous confidence in our vice chairman, Barrett Masrani, who's also the CEO of TD. So it's not like I'm in that role totally by myself. We've got a great firm. We know what we're doing. We're moving in the right direction. I have tremendous confidence in our CEO and tremendous confidence in our vice chairman. So that allows me to spend the time that I need to with regard to football. It's a matter of prioritizing, JJ.
Well, you've done an amazing job from driving a cab and going to school all the way through. So one of the things that you have to do is evaluate young men. Yep. And see what characteristics, and I got to imagine it's one of the hardest things to look at a 17 or an 18-year-old kid and say, this kid's going to be something special. I want to equate that to your business career, though, because Daytech Online, Waterhouse, you were able to evaluate these companies and say, this is going to be something special. What do you see in common with that, or are there differences, and how has coaching helped you, and then how has business helped you on the coaching?
Now, evaluating a company, the people behind the company is very important, but that's not the exact same thing as evaluating a person. So I think the most important job that I have, whether I'm a football coach or a leader in the business world, is making sure I've got the right people around me. So I've got to do everything I possibly can to make sure it's a person of character, they've got the skill sets that I need, and more than anything, they can handle themselves under stress, because that's how you differentiate yourselves. With regards, when you're looking at a business, you've got to decide whether or not it's a cultural fit, but at the end of the day, it's not as complex as everybody acts like it is. Is it the right thing for your clients? Is it the right thing for your shareholders? Is it the right thing for associates? If it's not for both institutions or both entities, the deal's not going to work. It's not going to work afterwards. If it is the right deal, you're supposed to be aggressive in terms of moving forward on that. So in both cases, you got to make sure the fit's right. In the case of people, though, you got to make sure they believe in what you believe in. Don't have to have your personality or handle things the way you would, but they've got to be the right people, and they've got to be able to handle themselves under pressure.
I want to get to something that I know you believe in. You have a program at your school, the BAM program.
Yeah.
And if you want to talk about it, because I think we have so many parents who watch our show, and we hear from them, and they want to get their children started in investing, but outside investing, just started as a good person. I think this is really important for you to talk about.
There are two things that we do that nobody else in the country does. The first is we don't have any rules. Literally, there are no rules in a football program, but we've got a standard. The standard, you reference BAM. BAM means be a man. A real man, a real woman, a real leader is somebody that stands on their own 2 feet, takes responsibility for themselves, treats others with dignity and respect, and they're going to live with the consequence of your actions. It's the entire philosophy that our football program is built on. For what it's worth, when I was responsible for TD Ameritrade, that was the standard that I had for my management team. When I was at Merrill Lynch, that was the standard I had for our management team. When I coached the first time, that was the standard that I had for the people on the team. That's the standard I have for our coaching staff. That's the standard I have for me. That's the standard with which my daughters and my children were raised. So it's a philosophy I believe in more than anything else in my life. Now, having said that, with football, we tend to, it's not just football, we tend to grow up in our society, our children, with some sort of subconscious sense of entitlement. Somebody's going to take care of them, somebody's going to bail them out. Well, taking responsibility for themselves is totally the opposite of that. And it's easy to say, oh yeah, I believe in BAM, but you've got to be able to live up to that. And for us in football, it's not just football, it's your classroom, it's what your behavior on and off campus. And every one of our guys is always going to be somebody's son or somebody's brother. And we expect them to live up to that responsibility to the family. So that one principle, to me, has been one of the most significant differentiators for me in my personal life and both careers from the very, very beginning.
And I'm going to imagine you ran into this in business, and probably even more pronounced with young men who were treated a little bit special, because, you know, we've all seen it. If you're a great athlete in the high school, you know, you and I saw, you know, lived it, saw it, you get treated a little bit more special. So how hard was this to enact when you first started?
It's, when we're recruiting, it's where we begin. So before you even come to the school, you understand this is the way it is. And I go out of my way to say, if you wind up coming to Coastal Carolina and you turn out not to be a good player, our fault. We did a crappy job of evaluating you as an athlete. But if you're not living up to BAM, that was part of the deal before you got here. In the business world, you also have many, many people that have a sense of entitlement. And that's the standard from the very beginning. We're not going to make excuses. We're going to take responsibility for ourselves. We're going to understand our objective. We're going to be able to get the things done we need to get done. It's too easy for a kid. Well, the teacher doesn't like me. My coach doesn't like me. It's too hot outside. My parents don't get it. It's too easy for a business person to say, well, you know, the administration is not cooperating. Our tax policy is an issue. We're going to have a tariff war. I don't like what the Fed's doing. The yield curve's inverting. Every time, whether it's a player or a business executive, you say something like that, you're establishing a subconscious excuse for yourself. You're letting yourself off the hook. And we can't ever let that happen. In the business world, when we got to Ameritrade, it was, we were struggling. I mean, we were potentially going out of business. We were in 7 or 8 different countries. We were many, many, many different products. And we said, well, what are our core strengths? How do we leverage those into competitive advantages? And how do we compete in the markets we're choosing to compete in? And no matter who you talk to, everybody had an opinion about what somebody else should be doing. But in their case, oh no, we've got it. We're going to be great in Germany. We're going to be great here. We're going to be great there. And the reality is, we would use excuses then too. We were in the middle of the recession because the dot-com bubble had burst. Right. Well, everything we had done was with the idea of the active trader. Well, it doesn't matter the dot-com bubble burst. It doesn't matter if our technology is up to par. It doesn't matter where we are. We've got to be able to fix this. So let's focus on what we're good at. Transaction processing, buying and selling of stocks. We said if we could do a good job of that, then we'll see what we could do in terms of like rolling up the industry. But the bottom line, there were no more excuses. There were no reasons for why we weren't able to figure it out. So those are the decisions we had to make.
And I think it's important too, because it goes back to your first point, you really help prioritize what the business should be doing.
I totally agree. The way you're going to differentiate yourself from anybody else in your career is how you handle yourself under significant stress. Your ability to be able to do that under stress will differentiate you from others.
See, that's funny. I thought you traded options.
I'm not really a Wall Street guy.
What's the hesitation?
It just feels too complicated, you know?
You know, at TD Ameritrade, we can walk you through your options trade step by step until you're comfortable.
I could be up for that.
Step-by-step options trading support from TD Ameritrade.
Ready, camera one, in 3, 2, 1, go.
On Fast Market, we're focused on delivering real-time, data-driven insight.
A little bit of a momentum divergence going on.
It's a bullish trade, but it can still go down.
You can't argue with the chart that you put up.
This is something you can do with any commodity.
Veteran traders focused on options, futures, and trading markets.
There is a lot of risk compared to the reward in this trade.
This paper money trade that we did right here gives you the chance to make money either way.
Feel that? That's the beat of global markets, the rhythm of the world. For most, the cadence of today. To us, the pace of tomorrow. It's people and machines uncovering opportunity. Cloud computing providing endless capacity. Blockchain making transactions safer and faster. New markets born where they weren't before. With ingenuity, technologies, and markets expertise, we create the possible. And when you do that, you don't chase the pace of tomorrow. You set it. NASDAQ. Rewrite tomorrow.
So how's it going?
Well, we had a vacation early in our marriage that kind of put us in a hole.
Go someplace exotic?
Yeah, Bermuda.
A hospital in Bermuda.
A hospital in Bermuda.
What? What happened?
I got a little overconfident on a moped.
Even with insurance, we had to dip into our 401k, so it set us back a little bit.
Sometimes you don't have a choice, but it doesn't mean you can't get back on track.
Great.
Yeah, great.
I'd like to go back to Bermuda.
I hear it's nice.
Yeah, I'd like to see it.
No judgment, just guidance. TD Ameritrade.
With an hour left before the close, you need all the information you can get. Join me, Oliver Rennick, for Market on Close. Analysis from some of the smartest minds in the business through the lens of stocks, options, and futures activity. We'll interpret the news you need to take action. Exclusive content for investors looking to cut through the noise by cutting the cord. Market on Close, weekdays 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central Time, only on the TD Ameritrade Network.
You've won multiple leadership awards. And so, I want to get back to football in a second, but I think being a leader has kind of been your mantra, so to speak. That's the role you've always developed. What do you see in yourself and say, okay, this is how I want to lead? Or is there anybody you've sort of emulated in your leadership, in your career, or has it been a combination? Did you have a mentor that helped you? If you want to just talk a little bit about that, because I think it's important for people also.
I think I've been able, JJ, my entire career to learn from the people that have been around me. And, I've been able to do that. And they don't have to be senior than I am. There are many people that I have that have been junior to me that I've been able to learn from. So there's a composite there. I wouldn't say somebody specifically, other than I'd go back to my upbringing, my parents. My mom, glass was always half full. Unconditionally loved us. Again, Irish immigrant, smiling all the time, couldn't be happier. My father, again, born in Italy, never finished 8th grade. This band thing, take responsibility for yourself. My father didn't get that. You know, it was never. The glass was always empty. Now, my dad worked very hard, and he took his responsibility to take care of his family very, very seriously. But usually he was in a bad mood. He only had 3 or 4 guys like work with him in the store. I didn't like the way he kind of treated them. And I learned so much from my father when it came to leadership and approach to life and attitude, frankly, about what not to do and the way not to think. And I think when I can kind of combine those two, my mom and my dad, I'm grateful for what I've learned, both in terms of what I would want to emulate and both in terms of what I would not want to emulate. And that's where that kind of began.
That's really interesting, actually. I mean, we all learn from our parents, but obviously you thought it through in a way to really help your career and help you as a leader.
That's what happens when you become a father when you're a teenager.
Yes, you have to think about that. Oh, well, I want to talk about many of the football coaching awards you won, and I just want to make sure I get them all because there are so many of them. Eddie Robinson National Coach of the Year, recipient of the Vince Lombardi Award, and inducted into the Lombardi Hall of Fame are 3 of the biggest ones.
Yes.
I know we could probably name 25
but
more.
They're the ones I'm most proud of.
And so with that, you know, as again, you talked a lot about your leadership of young men, et cetera, and you're very proud of these awards. And I think, unfortunately, you talked about working your way up the ladder as a coach. Unfortunately, people just see, oh, he won these awards. They don't see you living above
the loft.
The loft. Yeah. What advice do you have to people, though, especially younger people who watch our show, in terms of working their way up through their companies, et cetera, and how to think about that? Because I think too often people are like, well, if I don't start nobody started at the top of the mountain, but when you're 23, 25, you had to learn that really quickly, but I think sometimes people lose sight of that.
I think, JJ, there are certain things that everybody says. For example, you got to be a good team player, you got to be a hard worker, you got to be honest. Above and beyond those things then. To go back to the band philosophy, at the end of the day, you take responsibility for yourself. Do you have the skill sets for that particular career path? What are the skills that are required to be successful in that particular career? Do you have those? If you don't, you're in the wrong career path. If you do have those skill sets, there's still another issue. Is this something you could be passionate about? If you answer yes to the skill sets and yes to the passion, you're going to have a competitive advantage over 85% of the people that are in that field. If you don't have the passion, or if you don't have the skill sets, that's the reason why you're never probably going to go anywhere. And even if you're talented enough to get away with that, you're going to be unhappy in your job. So once you begin, and you begin at whatever level you begin at, the suggestions I would make is that you learn the job, and one of the ways you learn the job is by listening and learning and observing from others. It's not by raising your hand all the time. It's by listening and learning. Be a good listener, learn from others. The second piece of this, which I think is critical, ultimately, and that is the way you're going to differentiate yourself from anybody else in your career is how you handle yourself under significant stress. Your ability to be able to do that under stress will differentiate you from others. And people that are above you, they need that type of talent on their team. That will get recognized. That will get recognized, and you get the promotions that are due you. You should have a decent plan in terms of what you think you may want to do, but too many people talk about, well, I got a network, and I got a this, and I got a that. The best thing you could possibly do is learn your job, do it, and be at your best when you're under stress.
That's great. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask a couple of questions. So the last couple of questions, and you know, you've been in this business for a long, in the finance business for a long time. You've dealt with a lot of clients, people who are starting out. It's, you know, I'm assuming it's similar principles. They're often intimidated. How do they get over the, oh my God, I'm not smart enough to invest in the market or whatever type principle?
I happen to be the only guy in the world who's written 2 books that have been published, one on football, one on investing.
Right.
All right, so the reason why we did the investing book, we were trying to move to a little bit more of a long-term investor model and platform. So we wanted to be able to teach. We wanted to be able to teach people kind of what the individual products were, and then how might you put together your own portfolio. Now, the reason why it seems so complex is because, frankly, I think Wall Street makes it complex because Wall Street is able to make a lot of spread, a lot of money on that. Now, at the time, our mission statement was we want to bring financial literacy to every family in this country. Part of the reason why we wrote the book, But that was the mantra for all of our people. So we were doing something that we were excited about. It wasn't about us, it was about our clients. And I wanted the name of the book to be, It Ain't That Tough. The publisher didn't like that, so they came up with something else. But what bothers me is that, again, you take responsibility. Now, in a family, one of the most important responsibilities a family has, somebody's got to take responsibility for the finances. And I find it sad that there are so many families that spend more time planning a vacation than they do planning their finances. Now, how you learn and how you go about it, whether you get help, whether you do it yourself, whatever it may be, you begin with taking responsibility. But you learn it a little bit at a time. It is not the most complex thing in the history of mankind. We're not curing cancer. We're not putting somebody on the moon. It's being able to manage your money in a disciplined way that ultimately you're going to get good results from that, so you can have a better life for yourself and your family. If you don't begin by taking responsibility for that, you're never going to get there. And by the way, I commend you and our education team for what we try to do along those lines, because I think what we do a great job of is we're not making decisions for our clients for the most part, but we are helping educate and teach them so they can make the right decision for themselves. And I take a lot of pride in the fact that TD Ameritrade does that.
Well, thank you, man. And I think as a company, we all should, because we do a very good job. And then last question, we're sitting here midsummer. What do you think about the market right here, the market going forward? You started off talking about, you know, the tariff thing, some of the political situation, et cetera. What do you see for the market overall?
Well, the policies that I think we're implementing are the right policies. So I feel pretty good about that. You know, we're at highs. I'm always a little bit nervous when we're at highs in the market, but the concerns that I still have, everybody talks about the trade war. I believe in what our president's policies are, but I don't have a lot of confidence in his ability to be disciplined enough to maybe say things that he shouldn't be saying. Because there's going to be somebody else, someplace else with a big ego at another country that's going to look at that as a conflict. That probably doesn't necessarily help us. We talk about trade war. Everybody talks about that. But we haven't been talking about the threat of terrorism. It still exists in terms of the Middle East, in terms of what's going on in North Korea. So employment looks good. The economy looks good. Our GDP looks good. Corporate balance sheets look good. Everything looks good, except should be a little bit conservative just because we're at highs. And I worry about if something surprises us, it's going to be a big deal. It's not going to be, we're going to go down a couple hundred points. Mm-hmm. It could be a big deal. And I think we just got to be thoughtful about that.
All right. Well, thank you, Joe.
Thanks, JJ.
This was fantastic.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed today as much as I did. I don't even know where to start on the wrap up. Joe's so accomplished, you know, author, football coach, leader, chairman of the board. He's done everything there is. And by the way, we only touched on a few of the awards he's received because he's received so many in his life. More importantly, great teacher of now young men, but people throughout his career, and talking really about accountability and responsibility. If anything, I hope that's what you truly take away from today and you think of when you think of Joe Moglia. With all that, this was just an unbelievably great show today. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you for tuning in as always. I'm JJ Kinahan. This is Real Talk.